Last week I reviewed a Nikon F75, which I called a plastic version of an F5, the professional camera, analog camera from Nikon, one of the last ones they made. This time we'll look at a more entry-level camera, the Nikon F60, which I actually loved to use on a trip to Nepal recently. So let's get on with it. So welcome back to my channel. This time we are having a look at the entry-level Nikon F60, which is a very cheap camera that you can get for very little. I paid €40 for this camera, without the lens though, but let's have a look at what you can do with this camera. On my trip I found that I had a slight problem with the camera. Not that there's something wrong with it, but the reason was that I had some film that were spooled by myself, like this one, an Ilford FP4. So there's no DX coding on this, and this camera needs DX coding to function properly. Well, so I thought. But actually it wouldn't load the film unless I put a piece of foil inside, so I could cover these contacts here, and then it would load the film. But it thought that the film was 3200, ISO 3200, and it is actually ISO 125, so I was very far off from the real value. But I then used the camera in manual mode, and as I am good to judge the exposure or the EV value of the light around me, I had no problems doing that. Some of the films that I had were DX coded, so I could use aperture priority mode, which I usually use on my cameras, and I did that for all the DX coded film, but the rest I shot in totally manual mode. So that's a way to come around this limitation on this camera. The camera has this lovely window up here where you can see a lot of your settings, like the shutter time and the f-stop. You can also see the battery, how much is left on this one. And I actually, on this camera, used these rechargeable batteries, and they worked for most of my trip in Nepal for 1.5 months. I was on a mountain trip, on a climb, and I was also on a holiday together with my wife, and we made a trek around Manaslu. And I'll show you some images from this, and then we'll discuss the rest of the camera afterwards. So I hope you like this little look at the Nikon F60. A camera that is very easy to use. It is a beginner camera, but you can do all the things that you would like with a professional camera. There's one thing that this camera is lacking, and that is a depth of field button, so you can't judge your depth of field in your images. That's actually about the only thing I miss. I would like to have it two control wheels on this camera. It only has this control wheel on the back. So normally you set the shutter time. If you go manual, you set the shutter time with this one. But then if you need to set the aperture, you press this button here, and then you set the aperture as well. So it works pretty well even for my use case, where I used it with the manual settings. The images that come out of this are quite good, and it worked flawlessly all the time while shooting. It winds the film itself, and when you finish the film, it winds it all the way into the cassette, something that I actually don't like, but that's not a big deal for me. So I still can only recommend this camera if you want a very cheap beginner's camera that can do very nice images. I had this lens, so I shot with this 50mm f1.8, which is very good for portraits. But for the 40 euro I paid for it, I got it with a zoom lens that is also a nice lens, not as nice as this one, especially not for portraits, but this is good. So I can only recommend this setup if you want to use it for purposes like that. So thank you very much for this time, and hope you will subscribe to my channel and also hit the like button on this video. Bye for now.